Okay, let's dive into the agenda. 1. British history and heritage. 2. Government and law. 3. UK culture and society. And 4. A final review. Starting off with Section 1, British history and heritage. From the Stone Age to modern Britain, we're going to compress thousands of years of history into some really quick, retainable facts. Let's test your knowledge right out of the gate. Here's your first question. Who built the Tower of London? Take a second, think about it. Got it? It was William the Conqueror. He built the iconic White Tower shortly after taking the throne in that incredibly famous year, 1066. Now, piecing together the early sequence of Britain is like putting together a giant puzzle. 6,000 years ago, the very first farmers arrive. Fast forward 2,000 years, boom, the Bronze Age begins. Then, in 55 BC, you have Julius Caesar's unsuccessful Roman invasion, followed way later by the Anglo-Saxons in AD 410. We just talked about the Norman conquest in 1066, but jumping ahead to 1348 gives us a really crucial exam fact. That's when the Black Death Plague arrived, wiping out an estimated 1/3 of the entire population of England, Wales, and Scotland. Just staggering numbers. Now, what's really interesting here is how neatly we can pair famous royals with their specific test-relevant crises. You don't need to memorize their whole biographies. Just match the monarch to the event. For example, Henry VIII established the Church of England literally just because the Pope wouldn't grant him a divorce. His daughter, Elizabeth I, famously defeated the Spanish Armada in 1588. Charles I, he's the one who was executed during the Civil War in 1649. His son, Charles II, had a wild ride. He escaped capture by hiding in an oak tree and was king during the Great Fire of Linden in 1666. And finally, William of Orange. He took the throne in 1689 with zero resistance, a bloodless takeover we call the Glorious Revolution. Stepping into the modern era, you need to know a few key dates. 1833 is a massive one. The Emancipation Act abolishes slavery across the empire. 1899 brings the Boer War in South Africa. Then 1914, the First World War begins. Now, please burn this next one into your memory for the exam. 1928. That is the exact year women gained voting rights equal to men. Following the Second World War, which started in 1939, the public elected Clement Attlee's Labour government in 1945, which completely reshaped the country's social fabric. The explosive growth of the 19th century is just wild when you connect the dots. During the Victorian era, the British Empire reached a mind-boggling 400 million people. Part of this was fueled by free trade. The government repealed the Corn Laws so they could import cheap grain. And that fed right into the Industrial Revolution. Driven completely by new machinery and steam power, the country suddenly had to build these huge networks of canals just to link the new factories to the ports. Also during this time, you have the Crimean War, which was the very first war extensively covered by the media. And out of that exact conflict emerged Florence Nightingale, who is universally recognized as the absolute founder of modern nursing. All right, let's shift gears to Section 2, Government, Law, and Politics, How Modern Britain Functions. Time for some active recall. What are 2 responsibilities you will have as a British citizen? Think about your civic duties for a second. Ready? You must respect and obey the law, and you need to look after your environment and the area where you live. These are absolutely fundamental to living in the UK. Expanding on that, British life is built on some core civic principles. We're talking democracy, community participation, the rule of law, and individual liberty. There is also a strict expectation of tolerance for those with different faiths. Legally speaking, the media has to provide equal and balanced coverage during elections, and within the government itself, civil servants are hired on merit and absolutely must be politically neutral. The Prime Minister and their cabinet make the actual decisions, though the monarch does still meet with the PM to advise and warn. So, the crucial point to remember here is this magical number 18. 18 is not only the minimum voting age, but it's also the exact minimum age to be randomly selected from the electoral register for jury duty. Lock that number in your brain. When it comes to devolved powers, London doesn't handle every local issue. Scotland has the Scottish Parliament at Holyrood with 129 elected members. Wales has the National Assembly, or Senedd, with 60 members. And Northern Ireland has the NI Assembly at Stormont with 90 members. They handle local things like health and education. But keep in mind, major national issues, like defense and foreign affairs, remain strictly under central UK control. Let's break down the justice system, which basically splits into 2 buckets: criminal law and civil law. Criminal law covers offenses like smoking in enclosed public places, racism, female genital mutilation, and forced marriage. Civil law is totally different.
It deals with disputes between people or organizations. Think workplace discrimination, faulty goods, or unpaid rent. For the courts themselves, minor offenses go to the magistrate's court, or the justice of the peace if you're in Scotland. Major crimes escalate to the Crown Court, or the High Court in Scotland. It's a great little cheat sheet to memorize. Looking at how Parliament actually works, it's made of two houses, the House of Commons and the House of Lords. General elections happen at least every 5 years, and the UK uses a first-past-the-post system. That just means whoever gets the most votes in their specific area, called a constituency, wins the seat. If an MP unfortunately dies or resigns, a special by-election is held just for that one area. Oh, and a quick legal limit you should definitely know. For small claims, the limit is £10,000 in England and Wales, but it's only £5,000 in Scotland and Northern Ireland.
Moving right along to Section 3, UK Culture and Society, Traditions, Arts, and Innovations. Let's do a quick sports flashcard. What is the name of the most famous cricket competition played between England and Australia? Any guesses? It is, of course, the Ashes. It's a legendary sporting rivalry and a highly tested topic. Now, this next bit builds a perfect memory matrix for things you will absolutely be tested on: patron saints and national flowers. For England, it's St. George on April 23rd with the rose. Scotland is St. Andrew on November 30th with the thistle. Wales celebrates St. David on March 1st with the daffodil. And Northern Ireland honors St. Patrick on March 17th with the shamrock. Britain has literally changed the world with its scientific breakthroughs, and you need to link the inventor to the invention. Tim Berners-Lee, he gave us the World Wide Web. Alexander Fleming discovered penicillin. Francis Crick co-discovered the structure of DNA. In engineering, Robert Watson-Watt developed radar, while Frank Whittle pioneered the jet engine. And John Logie Baird, that Scottish inventor, gave us the television. When you see a science question, look for these exact pairings. Let's rapid-fire some cultural highlights you'll definitely see on the exam. In literature, remember, Shakespeare is from Stratford-upon-Avon, and Chaucer wrote the Canterbury Tales. For modern arts, the Turner Prize is for visual art, and the Man Booker is for fiction. Pop culture in the 1960s was all about the swinging 60s, led by the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. In cinema, know Nick Park. He's the animator behind Wallace and Gromit. Geographically, there are 15 national parks, and the Lake District is the biggest. And for landmarks, you absolutely have to know the Giant's Causeway in Northern Ireland and the Eden Project in Cornwall. Let's round out the culture section with the calendar. You know, Christmas is December 25th, but remember, Boxing Day is the public holiday right after, on the 26th. Easter marks the resurrection of Jesus, coming right after a 40-day reflective period called Lent. Diwali is the 5-day Hindu and Sikh festival of lights, and Eid al-Adha is the Muslim festival of sacrifice. Up in Scotland, New Year's Eve on December 31st is called Hogmanay. And don't forget April Fool's Day on April 1st. Just remember, the practical jokes have to stop at midday. Okay, pay close attention to this one because it is a massive trick question on the test. The Channel Islands and the Isle of Man are Crown dependencies. The Falkland Islands and St. Helena are British overseas territories. Yes, they are closely linked to the UK, but here is the trick. None of them are officially part of the United Kingdom. Great Britain is just England, Scotland, and Wales. The UK is Great Britain plus Northern Ireland. That's the whole shebang. Finally, Section 4, Final Review and Next Steps, Your Path to Citizenship. We've got one final flashcard question for you. Does Britain have a written constitution? Think about all those historical documents, the Magna Carta, the Bill of Rights. Does it add up to a single written constitution? Actually, no. It's famously unwritten. It's totally based on centuries of laws, traditions, and conventions instead of one single document. And there you go. You have successfully reviewed the wars, the laws, and the culture that built the UK. By bringing all those scattered practice questions into this one explainer, you now have the essential facts locked in. So here's a thought-provoking question that won't be on your exam. Now that you hold the facts, how will you contribute to the next chapter of British history? I really hope you found this explainer helpful, and I wish you absolute success on your upcoming test. You've got this.